Tonight, we're looking at unsolved TikTok mysteries that will haunt you.
Say it with me. People don't just vanish after crashing their car. Except in this case, he did. And that's not even the scariest part. He was literally on the phone with his parents after crashing his car in the middle of the night, waiting for them to come and pick him up. And in the distance, he sees lights, which he thinks is a nearby town. But it wasn't. And when his parents come to the exact spot that he said he was, they couldn't see him and he couldn't see them. Then suddenly he yelled, "Oh," before the line went silent, and then he disappeared off the face of the earth. This is the mysterious disappearance of Brandon Swanson. It is extremely unsettling and still unsolved, so let's talk about it.
Welcome back, guys. Thank you to all the channel members for support. If you're seeing this video, let's try to like the video so it gets pushed to more people. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to smash that subscribe button. We're 25K off of 100K, so join the family. Let's go.
Have you ever wondered why you can't bring a full bottle of water through airport security? Well, it's all because of one man. Meet Abdullah Ahmed Ali. He was a 28-year-old British guy born in East London to Pakistani parents. He was a really smart kid, studied computer engineering. On the surface, he was totally normal, but underneath, Ali was changing. He got radicalized by wars overseas and started running with a crew that wanted revenge on the West. And so together, they plotted something insane to take down 7 transatlantic planes leaving London, all at the same time. And here's the twist, the explosives were disguised as soda bottles. They hollowed them out, refilled them with explosives, and resealed the caps like nothing happened. That soda wasn't soda at all. It was hydrogen peroxide bombs, ready to explode with just a syringe and a battery. He thought no one knew what he was up to, but MI5 had been on him for months. They had hidden cameras and secret mics basically spying on him. They even filmed him mixing the chemicals himself. On August 9, 2006, police made their move. Huge raids across London and over 24 suspects arrested. And at the center of it all was Ali. He was the mastermind. And the judge didn't hold back. Ali was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 40 years. So yeah, the next time you're standing at security dumping out your water bottle, remember Abdullah Ahmed Ali. 'Cause one man's plot changed the way the whole world flies.
With all honesty, I'd rather be able to just dump my water out than be 30,000 feet in the sky with a dude threatening to bomb my plane.
World's most unsolved mysteries. This picture represents mysteries from the most well-known to the darkest. Some of these mysteries have never been solved and never will. For this series, we're going to be picking some from each category until we reach tier 10, the point of no return. Okay, so tier 1. Today we're going to be talking about the beast of Gévaudan. Between 1764 and 1767, a huge beast killed over 100 people in southeastern France. It was described as being a large cow with razor-sharp teeth. If you think this is just a myth or a legend, you're wrong. This actually happened. In fact, there were so many witnesses that they were able to well document this entire thing. The first attack occurred when a woman was walking with her bulls. The beast charged the bulls, and the bulls were able to fight off this beast with their horns. The woman described it as a huge chest with razor-sharp teeth, tail way longer than a wolf, and horns on its head. This beast was so dangerous that it would appear on people's doorsteps, and when they would open the door, it would tear their feet right off. Not only that, but 80% of the victims either had their throat torn out or their head cut off. And sometimes it would even carry the bodies away, leaving little trails of body parts. Now onto the theories. The first theory is it's nothing more than a wolf. One of the reasons people say that this theory isn't true is because of the way they described it. Not only are the physical characteristics different, but the attacks themselves as well. Wolves don't typically attack full-grown men because they're afraid, but this beast killed over 100 people. The second theory is maybe it was a lion. This is one of the most popular theories, but to me it doesn't sit right because how could a lion get to the southeastern of France? The third theory, which I think is the scariest, is this was something we've never seen before, which leaves the question, was this just a wolf or a lion, or was this something much darker? Make sure to like and follow because we have a lot more to learn.
Just when I thought I heard about all the worst cults in history, this one had to come and blow them out of the water. This is Colonia Dignidad. They were a German torture cult hiding out in the Chilean wilderness after World War II, aka Yahtzees. And to show you how terrible they were, let me tell you a story. And as a quick reminder, if you want more info, you can check out the podcast. The leader of this cult was a known child abuser, and he wanted more Chilean boys to be brought to him. So he started a hospital in the community and used it as a trafficking system to get more children. One day, a young Chilean boy choked and was rushed to the hospital. And right when he got there, a nurse scooped him up, brought him to a room, and saved his life. But later that day, his sister arrived and asked a nurse when she could pick him up to take him home. and the nurse responded that they needed to monitor him for a few more days, which is pretty suspect in a choking case. So a few days later, she comes back and she's like, okay, can I get my brother? And the nurse tells her that he's not there anymore. And this is because the hospital had lawyers on staff that were drafting up adoption paperwork when young boys would come in. The cult was able to legally adopt boys in the community without the parents' consent, and the parents had not enough money to do anything about it. There are so many more stories about this place, and I had never heard of it before, so make sure you check out this week's episode for more info.
Was there ever a story that you were telling that actually made your skin crawl?
Oh, man.
Say it with me. People don't just vanish after crashing their car. Except in this case, he did. And that's not even the scariest part. He was literally on the phone with his parents after crashing his car in the middle of the night, waiting for them to come and pick him up. And in the distance, he sees lights, which he thinks is a nearby town. But it wasn't. And when his parents come to the exact spot that he said he was, they couldn't see him and he couldn't see them. Then suddenly he yelled, "Oh shit," before the line went silent. And then he disappeared off the face of the earth. This is the mysterious disappearance of Brandon Swanson. It is extremely unsettling and still unsolved, so let's talk about it. Brandon Swanson was a 19-year-old college student who disappeared on May 14th, 2008. He lived in Marshall, Minnesota, and was described as incredibly smart and reliable for his age. Brandon was studying wind turbines at Minnesota West Community and Technical College at the Canby campus, and on May 14th, 2008, classes at Minnesota West ended for the academic year. So to celebrate, Brandon and a bunch of his friends/classmates all partied and had a good time. That evening, Brandon stayed in Canby and went to 2 separate parties in which he drank some alcohol. His friend said that although he was seen drinking, he didn't seem drunk or anything. Just before midnight, Brandon decided to drive back home to Marshall, so off he went, driving the 30 miles back home. He grew up in this area and knew it like the back of his hand, and usually he would have taken Minnesota State Highway 68 to get home. This was the most direct route between Canby and Marshall, but for some reason that night, Brandon decided to take the back roads home, so this put him on some pretty remote farm roads. It seems like he did this to possibly avoid getting pulled over on the main road, but that has never been proven, just kind of my input on why he might have chosen to take the back roads that night, which he wasn't used to. But Brandon never made it home, and what happened after this has never been explained. At around 2 a.m., he called his parents and told them that he had crashed his car into a ditch and wasn't able to push it out. He said he was okay, but asked them if they could come and pick him up, and of course they said yes. As they were driving to Brandon, they kept him on the phone, and since this was a remote area, sometimes the call would drop, so they'd have to call back. But eventually they drove to where they thought Brandon was, and to make it easier to find him, Brandon stayed with his car and started flashing his headlights to get their attention and signal them. What's strange though is that even though his parents were at the location that Brandon said he was at, they couldn't see him and he couldn't see them. After a while, Brandon got tired of waiting and told his parents that he was going to leave his car and walk towards some lights that he could see off in the distance. Brandon thought the lights he was seeing was the small town of Lind, which is roughly 7 miles from Marshall. The lights didn't seem that far away, and this worked out perfectly because he had a friend who lived in Lind, so he decided to just start walking towards the lights. He told his dad to go to the parking lot of this really popular bar in town and wait for him, so they did, all while staying on the phone with him. As he was walking, Brandon told his parents that he was going to cut across a field as a shortcut, and that he could now hear water nearby and was passing some fences. So 2:30 in the morning hits, and this is now 47 minutes into the phone call with his parents. This is when Brandon suddenly yelled, quote, "Oh shit," end quote. And after this, the call went silent. His parents eventually hung up and tried calling him back multiple times, but Brandon never answered. And little did anyone know that those were the last words he would ever say. His parents tried driving around looking for him, but they found nothing. And by 6:30 the next morning, they were already at the police station trying to report him missing. But what's insane though is that the police just brushed this off and told them to wait. They told them that it's pretty typical for a young man his age to stay out all night after the last day of college classes. One officer even told his parents that it was Brandon's right to be missing. Later that day though, police did start searching, but really no progress would be made until they accessed Brandon's phone records. From those records, police found that Brandon had called his parents that night near the city of Taunton, which is a small town along State Highway 68. This is 25 miles from Lind, where Brandon thought he was, which was really odd. So they started searching in this area, and soon they found Brandon's abandoned car in a ditch off of a gravel road. To be more specific, this was along the Lincoln County line, just 1 mile north north of Highway 68. His car was basically high-centered and the wheels weren't touching the ground. Outside of this, nothing seemed out of the ordinary and no sign of foul play was found. But missing from the scene was Brandon and all of his personal belongings. Unfortunately, this area was either all gravel or grassy, so there were no tracks indicating which way Brandon may have started walking after getting out of his car that night. Investigators later found that his phone specifically pinged off of a tower near Minneota, which is another small town off of Highway 68. They found that the call came from within 5 miles of this tower, so authorities really focused on searching this area. But this search radius also included a portion of the Yellow Medicine River, which was really worrisome for police. What's interesting though was that from this exact location, you could see a red light on top of a grain elevator in Taunton, and police thought that this is what Brandon possibly saw that night that he thought was the town of Lind. They figured he must have walked towards this light, so they got to searching. This search involved 4 different agencies, hundreds of volunteers, tracking dogs, and even utilized helicopters. Just when they thought that they weren't going to find anything, the tracking dogs picked up a 3-mile scent trail of human remains. This trail followed the field roads until it led them to an abandoned farm. The trail then led them to the Yellow Medicine River to a point where it appeared to enter the stream. What's disturbing though is that after the dogs followed the scent to the water, they continued up across the other side of the water along that riverbank to another gravel road. Then the trail continued north towards the Yellow Medicine County line, and after this, it just stopped. But because the dogs did hit on the water, it was a possibility that Brandon may have drowned, so authorities installed gates in the water and then brought in boats to extensively search the river, but they found nothing. On the day of Brandon's disappearance, the water was running pretty fast and high, and in some areas the water was 10 feet deep, but in the following days it had gone down, so along with searching the water, police walked along the riverbanks, and they searched via horseback and ATVs, but no trace of Brandon or any of his personal belongings like his phone were ever found. Over the years, the area has been searched multiple times. There are a lot of surrounding fields and farms, and in the late fall, after everything had been harvested, police searched once again, and this is when the tracking dogs hit on another trail/scent of human remains. This trail led them into an area northwest of Porter that had not been previously searched, and this was a good sign of progress. But after searching 122 square miles, again, no trace of Brandon was ever found. He's never been seen or heard from again, and although we don't know what happened that night, there are a few theories. Theory number 1 is that he fell into the Yellow Medicine River and drowned. His scent was traced to a portion of the river, although it did come out the other side and onto a gravel road. This would line up with him having cut through a field that night, and he even told his dad that he heard water nearby. But authorities have heavily searched the water and have continuously found nothing, and in 2021, the river actually dried up due to a drought, so authorities excavated it, and still they found absolutely nothing. It really seems like he is not in that river. It's also weird that when his parents kept calling him back after he yelled "oh shit," the calls would go through every time and not just go straight to voicemail. I feel like if it was in the water, it wouldn't have done that. Theory number 2 is that Brandon fell somewhere in the fields, got hurt, and succumbed to the elements. It's very possible that he fell into a well or a crevice of some sort and just died before anyone could find him. It's also possible that Brandon walked onto a farmer's property, somehow fell, and got knocked out. Then some farm machinery ran him over, and this does align with some reports saying that the tracking dogs picked up on his scent on some farming equipment. It could be totally possible that the farmer panicked and just didn't say anything, and this was kind of backed up when a farmer in the area reportedly refused to let authorities search his property. Although that does seem sketchy to refuse to let authorities search your land for a missing man. Some said that if police came in and dug up the entire farm, it would essentially kill that farmer's business and livelihood. Like, that is their entire paycheck. So I get not wanting it to be completely ruined, and when it's put that way, it doesn't seem so sketchy. Brandon was probably more drunk than any of his friends knew or let on, so these two theories seem to make sense if that's the case. If he was really drunk in the middle of the night in an unfamiliar location, even cutting through a field to find a shortcut, it's entirely possible that an accident happened and he's just never been found. And lastly, theory number 3 is that foul play was involved, even though police found no evidence of this. It could be possible that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and someone was out there watching him who ended his life. Or he could have been a victim of a hit and run, and whoever was involved took his body somewhere else. But again, police found no evidence of this. Police are not ruling out foul play though, because at this point, there's zero evidence pointing to anything. What's so sad is that his parents to this day keep their front porch light on as a symbol of their hope that Brandon will one day come home. This case is so unsettling to me because it's truly like he vanished into thin air while on the phone with his parents. It's cases like this, the not knowing, that's just really disturbing. And I will die on the hill that the phenomenon of people disappearing after crashing their car needs to be studied. Too many people have done this, and it literally keeps me up at night wondering where they could possibly be. But it's now been 17 years, and whatever happened to Brandon that summer night remains a mystery.
I definitely think his scent being on some farming equipment is a little bit suspect, but at the same time I also do feel like if the farmer did run over his body, he would have notified the police, because you can't just run over someone's body and not notice.
Hey, you want to hear the reason why a US president broke down in tears after learning the truth about UFOs? Of course you do. It's super interesting. According to Ed Harris, a former NASA researcher, President Jimmy Carter, one of the few presidents to openly acknowledge seeing a UFO himself, was deeply shaken after his classified briefing. So the CIA reportedly gave him only a limited overview, as most presidents receive, but what he learned changed him forever. So what was he told? Well, according to this claim, Carter learned that major world religions, including Christianity, were programs created by extraterrestrials, designed to keep humans from destroying themselves. Carter was a deeply religious man, and this revelation shattered him. Witnesses said that he actually sunk his head into his hands and sobbed after hearing this, and he remained visibly disturbed for weeks after this briefing. Many actually believed Carter would be the president to finally disclose the truth about UFOs. But after that briefing, he never did. And recently, we've heard people like Tucker Carlson, Lou Elizondo, many people stating how dark this subject matter really is. So
What's a missing person case that just sits with you? This is Tara Smith, and she was just 16 years old. She lived in Redding, California with her family. She was the oldest of 4 siblings. Tara was an incredibly loving and kind soul. She loved horses. She loved riding. She was a very good writer. Her family says that they have volumes and volumes of her diaries. She loved poetry. She was very in tune with nature and had a very deep spiritual side. Her family said that Tara would always go out of her way to make everyone feel loved and included. She was just a good soul. Tara was an incredibly good student, and on top of being a good student, she was also very involved in her school, and she was kept her grades up and did very well. She would eventually take up Taekwondo because she felt like this would get more into her spiritual side. Her family owned this fun center where you could do mini golf and bumper cars or go-karts and stuff like that, and she always helped her family out. She would often come into work, and she never missed a shift. Now, while Tara was an incredibly good and kind soul, she was still a teenager, and she would get into trouble here and there. And on August 22nd of 1998, she was in fact grounded. She had gone with her mother to run some errands, and they had kind of spent the day together, and then her mother dropped her off at their home before going to the fun center to go to work. Tara was scheduled to work that same day. She was supposed to go in about an hour after her mother did, but Tara never showed up for this shift. When Tara never showed up, her mother finally called the house, and her younger sister Kira was there. Kira did answer the phone and tell her mom that Tara had said she was going to go out for a jog, would only be gone for about 20 minutes, but had never come home. So their mother drove back to the house, and she also drove along the roads where she thought that Tara might have been jogging, looking everywhere for her, but was unable to find her. The family didn't immediately call police, though, because they thought that maybe Tara had just snuck out and gone to a friend's house since she was grounded. They figured she was somewhere. So they started calling all of her friends and even her ex-boyfriend to see if anyone knew where she was, but no one had seen her. It wouldn't be until later that evening when one of Tara's friends would call Tara's parents and say, "I think Tara might be having an inappropriate relationship with her Taekwondo instructor, Troy Zink." This is when the Smith family decided to call police and get them involved. This immediately started raising red flags, and they were very worried for Tara's safety.
There's this 23-year-old kid named Rafael Perez, and he's out of this airport in Chimalacán, Mexico. And this kid, he's gonna fly on his own for the first time. So he takes off at 9:15 a.m. And right away he notices that it's very foggy. So he really has not really a good sense of where he is. He can't quite find the airport. And so he tries calling in with a radio. He doesn't really hear back from them. It's sort of garbled static. So he takes the yoke and he tries to bank the airplane left, but the airplane doesn't go left. It just continues flying in a straight line. The plane begins to climb, and he's not making the plane climb. The plane is climbing on its own. There was this huge cloud that he was basically flying into. He can't see anything, and he passes out. He wakes up in the cockpit, has no idea how long he's been asleep for, but he's immediately shocked that, holy cow, I did not crash the plane. He also looks out the window, and there's no more mist or fog. It's actually just the open ocean underneath him. And he looks at his clock and it says 11:30. Took off at 9:15. It's below 3 hours. The amount of time that has transpired that apparently I was asleep for is not enough time for me to arrive over any body of water. In addition to that, he looks at his gas gauge and it's at 3/4 tank. And he knew that not only is that way too high, but he wouldn't have had enough gas to reach any water body. And as he's coming to like, what's happening here, somebody chimes in over the radio and goes, hey, are you there? And he grabs this radio and he's like, hey, I fell asleep in my plane. I don't know where I am. And the guy on the other end, he's like, hey, this is Carlos. Are you alone in your airplane? And Raphael's like, of course I'm alone. Where am I? And Carlos is like, listen, you're just off the coast of Acapulco. And for the last hour, you've been flying out over the water. He arrived off the coast of Acapulco now an hour earlier. It takes 3 hours to get there. He apparently did it in about an hour and 15 minutes. He lands at the airport in Acapulco. And as soon as he gets off, there's these people in suits that are there to meet him. And they immediately take him and they drive him to a hospital. They drug test him. He's not on drugs. And they also have a psychologist come in and they give him a profile, make sure he's sane. And she determines that he is. And so finally they say, okay, we're gonna tell you what happened. When you showed up off the coast of Acapulco, you showed up on the radar screen of who you were talking to. And he talked to you for an hour while you were out over the water and it was recorded. And I'm gonna read to you the first thing that Raphael said to Carlos. The pilot is speaking, but not of his own free will. We are using him as a microphone. Your equipment is too primitive. It is not important who we are or where we come from, only that we are inhabitants of the same universe. For the next 30 to 45 minutes, the voice being projected through Raphael talked about humanity is the only intelligent species in the entire universe that uses warfare and conducts violence on each other, and you are poised for a nuclear holocaust, and you may be exterminated if this continues. And then at about 11:30, Raphael wakes up. No one has any idea how Raphael wound up over the coast, and the Mexican government quickly took this story, buried it, and now you can only access it in this obscure library in Mexico.
Yo, that's quite insane. That's probably the aliens giving us a warning, if I'm being honest.
So there's this company that was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They released 50,000 genetically modified mosquitoes. For what purpose? I don't know. But now, for the first time in 20 years, malaria has entered Florida.
Hey, malaria! Like, the conspiracy is the new mosquitoes that he introduced were supposed to kill mosquitoes that carried malaria. And so they were specifically designed to combat those diseases.
But we haven't had a case of malaria in the U.S. in over 20 years. And since they released these mosquitoes, so far from what I know, there's been 5 cases of malaria. 4 in Florida and then 1 in Texas.
A swing and a miss, Bill. A swing and a miss.
Stop messing with the bugs and stop doing all this stuff.
Quit going after the Titanic. Quit touching the mosquitoes. Leave everyone alone.
You know, Bill Gates also owns like the majority of all farmland in the
He
U.S.
owns a lot. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's why?
3 BuzzFeed Unsolved cases had groundbreaking discoveries this year. You maybe remember the story of the Lady of the Dunes. In 1974, a young woman who was out for a walk in the dunes of Cape Cod discovered the body of a woman. She wasn't able to be identified because her killer actually did things to her body so that you wouldn't be able to identify her, like removing her hand so you couldn't get fingerprints. But then this year, through DNA analysis and historical records, she was able to be identified as Ruth Marie Terry. And it turns out her husband at the time, Guy Rockwell Moldovan, was a suspect in the murder of his previous wife and stepdaughter. Then there's the case of the boy in the box, where in 1957, the body of a young boy was found wrapped in a blanket inside of a box in Philadelphia. The identity of the boy remained a mystery until this week, when through DNA analysis, he was identified as Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Police credited advancements in DNA profiling as well as volunteer sleuths who were able to figure out who his potential relatives would have been. Police also say it'll be an uphill battle to determine who is responsible for his death since his parents have since passed. And last we have the Somerton man, whose death in 1948 baffled Australian police. He was an unknown man found laying against the wall on Somerton Beach with nothing on him to identify him. The tags on all of his clothes had been cut, and the autopsy came back as potential poisoning, but his identity has stumped us for decades. That is until July of this year, when he was identified as Charles Webb. It said that a DNA match from a first cousin 3 times removed was what sealed the case.
So this guy is rich. Like, rich. Now let's call him Quiet Dog. Now Quiet Dog grows up dirt poor in Nigeria, and he wants nothing more than to make big money and have luxury things. So he starts searching for ways to make money. And eventually, as a young dude, he joins a gang of email scammers. It's a group of young guys who get together and they concoct like these Nigerian prince type email scams. So he joins one of these gangs and he works his ass off, sending hundreds of scam emails a day, trying to con people out of their money. And Quiet Dog's good at it, like easily scamming a few $1,000s at a time from people. But over time, he thinks, nah, this isn't good enough. And he sets his sights on a much bigger target. Not people, businesses. So he ditches his gang and he starts building a new team. And they come up with a new type of email scam, which targets mostly American businesses, law firms, small banks, stuff like that. And this new type of scam works. And it works pretty well for him. And he starts making more and more money. But unfortunately for him, around that time, the Nigerian government starts cracking down on these email scam gangs. So he takes a bit of the money he's made and he uses it to relocate to Malaysia. Now in Malaysia, for the first time, he gets access to things he didn't have back home. Reliable internet access, VPN tools, which immediately makes his email scam operation 10 times more effective. And pretty quickly, he's earning more than he's ever made. But Quiet Dog is still like, nah, that's not good enough, because he feels like he has to show everyone he's making big money. So he starts up an Instagram account and he starts posting about his luxury lifestyle. Mostly just him posing, wearing top-of-the-line brand clothes, nice watches, stuff like that. But it works, and his Instagram starts blowing up. People love his rich guy lifestyle. But Quiet Dog is still like, nah, it's not good enough. Because a few years later, he moves to Dubai, the absolute capital of luxury bullshit. And here is where he steps up his online business scams. And by this time, he and his crew, with each scam, they're making $1 to $5 million a couple of times a week. And this is where his Instagram posts get really flashy. Like here he is leaning on a Bentley, leaning on a Lamborghini, leaning on a Rolls Royce, taking trips to exotic places, flying in private jets, and lots of shopping. And his followers are way into this, like he is such a rich guy. In fact, they like his luxury posts so much, his Instagram hits 2.5 million followers. Now, of course, a lot of his fans are watching him spend millions and millions of dollars on stuff, and they're wondering, what the hell does this guy do for a living? And he always just brushes this off and just says he's a real estate developer. I mean, he put it right there in his Instagram bio. But at some point, brands start noticing his success, and he starts doing brand collabs with luxury brands. Versace, Burberry, Louis Vuitton, and his personal favorite, Fendi. In fact, he collaborated with Fendi so much, on his birthday, they decide to surprise him and send him a cake as a gift. And on the cake is a little figurine of him next to a bunch of Fendi bags. It's adorable. And Quiet Dog loves this. In fact, he's so excited, the first thing he does is he takes a photo and he posts it on his Instagram so his 2.5 million followers can see it. And that is where he screwed up, because this cake is going to be his downfall. So a week after Quiet Dog's birthday, boom, the FBI arrests this guy. Let's call him the Canadian. Now, the Canadian is one of Quiet Dog's email scam business partners, and the FBI had been tracking him for a while. So they arrest the Canadian and they confiscate his phone. And they see he's been Snapchatting back and forth with Quiet Dog. And at this point, they don't really know who Quiet Dog is, but they find his Instagram and they see all the big money, luxury, Gucci, Versace posts. But the FBI still doesn't really know who Quiet Dog is. They don't know his real name. They only know that he's a really rich guy who Snapchats with the Canadian about this email scam stuff. But then they notice Quiet Dog's birthday cake post. So now they have his birthday. And using that, they're able to trace him to a really old visa application he had submitted to the US years ago. That visa application has all of Quiet Dog's personal information on it. So now they know his real identity and everything about him, and they start surveilling him. And months later, Quiet Dog is asleep in his luxury penthouse apartment in Dubai, when suddenly, kapow, the Dubai SWAT team kicks in his front door, and they arrest him. And in 6 other simultaneous raids, they arrest 11 members of his email scamming crew. And they confiscate $40 million in cash, 47 smartphones, 21 laptops, and 13 luxury vehicles. And allegedly, over all that time, he and his email scam group scammed over $456 million. So they extradite Quiet Dog back to the US, he goes to trial, he takes a plea deal, and he gets 11 years in prison. Shout out to Nigeria.
Crazy, because I remember seeing him on Instagram, but I didn't really think, I mean, I was way younger back then, so I didn't really like look into it, like how he made money.
This is literally the definition of evil. So we now know that 2 children, aged only 8 and 10, have passed away. They're dead. And 17 more are injured, multiple in critical condition in hospital. And this is after a man in his early 20s, we now know. He approached this church from the outside while dozens of these children were inside in their pews at Mass, and they were celebrating their first week back at school. And he opened fire from the outside through the windows. And he was carrying three guns, a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol, and he used all three. He then ended his life inside the church. And there was even reports that one of the doors was barricaded from the outside. This guy apparently had no extensive criminal history, but police are investigating a motive. So, it turns out just hours before the church school shooting today, the gunman, who is now being identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, posted a 20-minute long manifesto video on YouTube. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this guy was seriously mentally deranged because he flips through this notebook in which he has a message to his family, which is multiple pages long. He has the actual a drawing of the church, and a lot of super violent ramblings, which I'm not going to go into. He then shows off all of the guns that he owns and all of the disturbing stuff he wrote on them. Things like, you know what, Donald Trump, Israel must fall, where is your God, for the children, 6 million wasn't enough, a bunch of Russian words, and he clearly spent a lot of time on the internet because there was quite a few references to memes, including Skibbity he wrote on his gun. I'm not even kidding. Point is, extreme hate and extreme evil. Authorities have confirmed they are aware of this video and is now being removed from YouTube while they investigate.
You are on death row.
Yes.
Talking for the first time publicly about your crimes.
That's right.
We're here today, sir, to try and understand the mindset and motivations behind your actions in these cases. You're 78 years old now, right?
Yes.
In poor health, you say?
Yes, very poor health. That's one reason I'm doing this, because I'm going to die soon. I have a congestive heart failure.
Tell me in your own words, why are you breaking your silence?
Well, you hit it right on the head. And I also, an answer is, I don't know. All I can say is, it's time. After 17 years, after ignoring innumerable requests from every kind of person in the world, it's time. That's the way I feel. It's time, after 17 years, to break my silence.
In our correspondence, you said, I think I'm prepared to give you an interview that's a lollapalooza. It'll knock your socks off.
Yes.
I will answer any question.
Yes.
About any subject, truthfully and completely.
Yes.
Can I count on you for that?
You sure can.
You said, be prepared to meet a whole different breed of cat. What breed exactly?
Well, I'm just like no one else, really, you know.
Serial killer?
They're a dime a dozen.
Psychopath?
No.
Sociopath?
I have part of that in me.
Please, I have made the worst mistake of my life.
I know.
Dude, I remember that story. It was one of the crazier stories because I remember when he was about to come back, North Korea claimed that they didn't torture him, they didn't do anything to him, they just had him locked up. When he came back, he was brain dead. He literally was in a coma pretty much. And I'm pretty sure he also died 2 days after he came back, so it's quite interesting. I wonder what they did to him because they claim they didn't torture him. I feel like they definitely tortured that kid. R.I.P. man.
Thank you all for watching this here video.